Today's Saturday, November 28th. It's a little after 6:30. I wanted to make a video just kind of about the whole purpose of this motorcycle build, why I'm wanting to donate any of the profits to mental health and suicide awareness programs or organizations, and kind of just why I've decided to do this. I've had some people, ever since I stated that I'm going to donate any of the profits, I've had a couple people reach out saying, I didn't know your past, or I don't know your story, or this or that. So it kind of opened up my eyes that, I'm very, very passionate about this. And some people know that about me. If you've ever talked to me about, mental health or suicide prevention or anything, you know that I'm very passionate and very open about it. But I also wanted to make this for anybody who, one, doesn't know the story, doesn't know my story. But two, I wanted to mainly make it so that people know that, I'm always here for anybody, no matter who you are, no matter our history, no matter what we do. We could be complete strangers. I'm here for you. And kind of why, I've decided to take this route with the motorcycle build of, donating any of the profits to an organization I'm passionate about. So the story kind of goes way, I kind of have to start way back from when I was a kid, just to kind of fully give the full spectrum of everything. So this video probably will be 10 to 15 minutes long in total, but if it's something that you're interested in, or if you're ever curious as to why I'm so passionate about it, this is me opening up to you, to anybody that's watching. So please feel free to share this. I'm like I said, I'm very open about this because it's something that needs to be made more aware in this country. It's something that the media doesn't take serious, I think, and I think just more people just need to be made aware of everything. So, to start. For anybody that's watching this that doesn't know me or has never met me, my name is Drew. I'm 28 years old from Cincinnati, Ohio. Growing up, I had a kind of a somewhat normal childhood, I guess. What I mean by that is my mom had my oldest brother, and 5 years later, let me restart that. So my mom was married to a guy. They had a son, my oldest brother. They got divorced, and then my mom met my biological father. He wasn't in my life growing up, but it wasn't because he was a bad man or that he was a deadbeat or anything like that. Growing up, my mom never ever once said a bad thing about him. She, basically went out of her way to make sure that I knew that he was a good guy, and that he just had his reasons that he needed to leave. So growing up, I never really had any, hatred towards him or anything like that. It was more of a just, he had to leave because he had some things going on. And, and so be it. That's kind of just how I was as a kid. That's kind of how I grew up. So when I was about two or three, I think, my mom got married to technically my stepdad, but I call him my dad. He's the main father figure I have in my life. And he had a son already. So I have two older siblings. Technically none of them are full blood, but we don't consider that in my family. They're my brothers. I do anything for them. They do anything for me. So my mom and my dad had two more kids. So I have two younger siblings as well. So there's 5 of us total. I'm right in the middle, dead smack in the middle. So like I said, growing up, I didn't know my biological father. And like I said, I always thought that it was just a kind of a normal thing. He just wasn't around. He had his reasons for it, and so be it. Like I said, my mom never had anything bad to say about him. My dad didn't know him, and I just never really heard anything more outside of that until I was a little bit older. If you know me, you know that I love Batman. I have a whole Batman sleeve. And part of that is because I grew up thinking or telling everybody when I was a kid, my dad's not here because he's Batman. He's out fighting the bad guys. He's out fighting crime, this and that. So that's part of the love of Batman is because I always thought my biological father was Batman as a kid. So growing up, I had when I say my dad, it's technically my stepdad, but I had my dad, and he's a great guy. I mean, we're still very, very close. He's the father to my two younger siblings and one of my older siblings. I mean, he's a great guy. He'd do anything for me. I'd do anything for him. He's been there. He's raised me, and like I said, he is my dad. But because I didn't know my biological father, I always kind of considered myself fortunate enough to have, other father figures in my life. My dad being one of them. My uncles, I'm very, very close to all my uncles on my mom's side, just because they were always around. My Uncle Jack always called me Piggy. So I'm little Piggy, he's big Piggy. My Uncle Jimmy would do anything for me, and I'd do anything for him. Just great guys, great father figures. But I had some best friends growing up as well that had, amazing father figures as well. Two of my best friends, one of my best friends, his dad was our soccer coach growing up with my dad. So my dad and his dad were our coaches growing up. And he's always been a father figure to me. I mean, I've known him since I was probably 7 or 8 years old. Same thing. I'd do anything for him. He'd do anything for me. I'd do anything for his family. He'd do anything for my family. And he's shown that. He's gone above and beyond for us more than anybody could ever imagine. And then one of my other best friends growing up, same thing. We kind of grew up playing soccer together. His dad was amazing. He would do anything for his family, and he considered me and a couple of our other closest friends kind of considered us the family. And he was funny as hell. I mean, he'd crack us up. He would make all kinds of jokes and this and that. And he was a very handy man. He built motorcycles growing up. I think that's kind of where my this kind of new passion of mine came from, is because I would always see him in their garage, working on another motorcycle. He'd drive it to our soccer practice. He'd drive it to wherever. He'd always had dirt bikes for his two sons. One of my best friends, and he was just a great guy. He'd do anything for his wife, my friend's mom. Let me take a step back. I'm not going to be using any names in this. But if you know me, you know who I'm talking about, or if you're the person watching this, you know who you are. If you're curious as to who it is, you can reach out to me, and maybe I can explain from there. But I don't want to use any names just in case anybody's a little uncomfortable with it. But anyways, so he grew up growing up around this family. He was just a great guy. And same thing, I knew him since I was about probably 7 or 8 years old, just from, we started out on the same soccer team. We were in the same second grade class, and we just became best friends. And so I was always around his dad. And then we were in high school. I want to say we were juniors in high school. Juniors in high school, I believe. And I was out with some of my friends. We were just kind of, bullshitting around, watching football or something like that. And I got a call from my mom saying that he had passed. And I mean, it's one of those things, kind of like 9/11. You remember exactly what you were doing. I mean, I remember exactly what I was doing. I was sitting down on the TV, and she told me that, and my heart just dropped. I started crying. I instantly got in my car, and I just went to their house. And so I get there, and basically our entire soccer team is there already. I was, kind of one of the last ones in the group to get there. but I walked in the house and I couldn't hold my tears back. I just started bawling my eyes out. And I hugged his mom, and I hugged his older brother, and then I went outside, and we all just were just in shock. It was crazy because it was really the first time in my life that I had somebody that I was so close to, somebody that I looked up to, somebody that I considered a father figure in my life, pass. And it was very, very hard. I mean, I can't imagine how my friend felt and how their family felt, but for me, it was very dark. I was in a weird spot at that point, but like I said, I'm not taking anything away from their family. I know that their family was hurting even more than I was, but me personally, it was very bizarre. I didn't like it, like the way that I was feeling after that. So like I said, that was the first time I had anybody close to me pass. And it was actually right around that time that I kind of noticed that looking back at the time, I wouldn't have said anything, but looking back at it, I can kind of pinpoint that that's kind of when things started to, my depression and anxiety kind of started to hit me. Because it was, like I said, it was a father figure of mine that, I no longer had. I mean, he was no longer around. And I remember thinking at one point, and this was right around my 18th birthday, I remember thinking at one point, like, my biological dad's gone, and now he's gone too. Like, who's next? And I remember talking to my mom, and actually this was on my 18th birthday, talking to my mom, and I kind of just asked her. I never really asked her up until this point, but I said, why did he leave? Why did my dad leave? And so she gave me some explanations. And so she said, he was dealing with some family issues. He had 2 older sons, before I was born. He was dealing with, trying to, navigate time between my mom and his sons. And from there, my mom told me that, he did have some addiction issues. And I kind of vaguely remember my mom saying something about that as a kid, but I never really asked about it. But yeah, that was in the picture. And so, I kind of said, okay, and it hurt me to think, remember I was 18 at this time. So it kind of hurt me to think like, he chose his 2 other sons over me. That's, I kind of get it. Like, I'm not that good enough, or I'm not good enough, or I'm not this or that. And so that really hurt me as well, to kind of think that way, even though my mom, reassured me that it wasn't that he didn't love me. I just kept playing that in my head, that I'm not good enough. I'm not good enough. I'm not good enough. No matter what anybody would told me, that's exactly where my head would have gone. So that's when, like I said, that's kind of when looking back at it, when I first really felt the depression hit me. So fast forward a couple years, my mom and my stepdad, but my dad, separated. I was a freshman in college. Freshman in college, and they separated. There was some issues with that. But in the long run, it's one of those things, they just kind of are better off apart. They get along great. I still talk to my dad all the time. He's always around us. He's great. But that did take a toll on me as well, because again, it was another one of those things of, okay, this is another change, another father figure that, sucks. Like no, I'm sorry. This is another father figure that's, kind of separating from us, and it sucks. Like, that feeling sucks. And so right around this time, I started drinking. I broke up with my girlfriend. We were together for 5 years, almost 5 years, and I basically broke up with her. Didn't really give any explanation as to why. I just kind of kept saying, it's not you, it's me. It's not you, it's me, blah, blah, blah. And so I started drinking, and then I met, shortly before I broke up with my girlfriend, I guess, I met my next girlfriend. I started drinking, met her, and her and I hit it off. We moved in together, and then we ended up getting engaged, and then we ended up getting married. This whole time I was drinking a lot. I never would have said that I had a problem, but I was drinking a lot. And then, we ended up getting married, and then about a month or two after the wedding, she told me that she was pregnant. And growing up, I always wanted to be a father. I was so happy, or I was always looking forward to being a father. I always said, I'm going to be the best dad ever. I'm going to make sure I'll do anything for my kids. I'll always be there for them, so on and so on. So she told me she was pregnant, and I was over the world. I was over the top. I was beyond happy. I was thrilled. I was just so happy, but I was scared as shit too. And the reason I was scared was because I'm gonna be a father. Am I gonna be like, this dad, or am I gonna be like this dad, or am I gonna be like this dad? Am I gonna let them down the same way that I felt let down? Am I gonna make the same mistakes that, that made me feel terrible as a kid? Am I gonna do that to my child? And it kind of always played in my head. And from there, I kind of started reaching out to like other girls, and wasn't the best husband in the world by any means. And I, if you know anything about me, you know that I'm a very honest person, and I will admit to the world here and whatever, that I was not the best husband by any means. Now, don't get me wrong, our relationship was, always kind of up and down after we were married, and we were never really the happiest, I should say. At least it kind of, looking back at it, it seems that way. Maybe I'm wrong, but I wasn't the best husband. I'll be the first to admit that. And I'm just going to leave it at that. So we ended up having our daughter, and then not even a year after she was born was when we separated. Now, in that time, so from the time she was born in October, and then the following June was when I had hit my lowest. So she was born. I was fucking thrilled. To this day, I'm just in awe at just how amazing my daughter is. She's, my everything. I would drop anything for her. I would do anything for her. But it's kind of the same thing. It was always playing in my mind, and I was still drinking at this point, and I was drinking very heavily. And same thing, at the time, I would have never said I had a problem, but I was definitely drinking very, very, extensively. And so the whole time in my head, I'm thinking, what am I going to do to let her down? I'm not that good of a father, or I'm not doing this, or I'm not doing that. I'm a terrible husband. I'm doing this. I'm reaching out to other girls. I'm, drinking a lot, or I'm doing, every once in a while I'd smoke or whatever. And it was like, I'm not that, I'm a piece of shit. I'm a terrible father or whatever. And I kind of never really reassured myself that I was overthinking things. Instead, I would just drink it away. And that led to, arguments at home, that led to financial issues at home, that led to me making even worse decisions than I already had. And so fast forward to June of 2018, I remember I was at work, and my wife at the time had said, "Can you pick up some food on the way home?" And I said, "Sure." It's something I did basically daily. But it took me about 2 hours to get home. And I didn't tell my wife where I was. I didn't tell her what I was doing. Didn't say anything. I just kind of said, "Yeah, I'll be home later." In reality, what I was doing was I was sitting in the parking lot at Gold Star recording a suicide note. I basically recorded it on my phone and just kind of went down a list of everybody, from my best friends, my siblings, my mom, my dad, my cousins that I was close with, everybody that I was close with, really. Then I went on to like my brother-in-laws, my in-laws at the time. And then it got to the point where I was leaving a note to my wife and my daughter, and basically was telling them that I'm sorry that I was doing this, but I just felt that I didn't have any other choice. So I recorded that, picked up the food, and went home. I gave my wife the food, and then I was holding my daughter and just bawling my eyes out. And my wife, she was asking me, like, "What's wrong? What are you doing? Like, whatever." And I just ignored it. I didn't answer it. I didn't do anything. And at this point, I did mention to my wife at one point that I was feeling suicidal, but it was never brought back up. I didn't do anything about it. I didn't seek help. I didn't do whatever. So when she was asking me what's wrong, I just ignored it. I kept holding my daughter. I kept bawling my eyes out and holding her and hugging her and kissing her. And then as soon as she was done eating, I stood up and I handed my daughter to my wife and I said, "Take care of her." And I walked out of the house. So she's trying to, follow me down the street, and I just take off running. So she calls my family, she calls her family, and, everybody's kind of driving around looking for me. People are calling me. I'm ignoring the calls. I'm ignoring them. And about an hour, I would say hour and a half goes by, and I get to the point where I'm standing over top of a freeway, ready to jump. And my mom had been calling me. My wife had been calling me, obviously. My dad's, my in-laws, brothers, everybody was calling me, and I just wasn't answering them. But I then, kind of had this thought in my head of like, this isn't what my daughter deserves. And then my best friend called me, and he's the only one I answered for. So I talked to him. He got me down. Like, he's on the phone with me. I told him where I was. He got, he was able to tell me to get down and basically, said, where are you? I'm coming to pick you up. So I told him where I was and I said, just meet me at my house. By the time you get to my house, I'll be there. And so sure enough, I had walked home. And from there, my best friend picked me up and took me to my mom. The next day, my mom took me to the doctor's, and my wife was there. And we went to the doctor, and he said, "You need to go down to University Hospital where they will basically do an evaluation." So I went down there, told him everything. They did an eval. And from there, I realized I needed help. And I admitted myself into a psychiatric hospital. Place called Beckett Springs. It's around here in Westchester, Ohio. I spent 7 days there. And in there, I, was able to kind of recoup everything, kind of admit to myself that I had issues and that I needed help and that, something wasn't right. So went on to, went through the program, did the outpatient program after that. Shortly after that, after I was in the hospital, my wife and I had decided to separate. And that it was nobody's fault, but it wasn't her fault, but it, made me more depressed than I already was. And even though I had told everybody that I stopped drinking, in reality, I didn't. I wasn't suicidal at this point because I wasn't that low. Or I had been on some medication that was helping with the suicidal tendency. So I wasn't suicidal, but I was still depressed. And so I was drinking even more than I already was, to the point where I was definitely an alcoholic. I was living with my mom. I'd come home and I would drink until 2 or 3 in the morning and then call off work and start drinking at noon and drink again. And all I did was drink and drink and drink. I drank at work. That caused me to basically lose my job. And this whole time I was dealing with divorce stuff, and I, like I said, I just kept getting depressed. So I ended up picking up a job at DHL, just kind of doing, stocking boxes basically. And I wasn't happy with what I was doing with work. So what I would do is I would go to work and I would get off and I'd go to the bar and drink. And it got to the point so let me take a step back, but shortly after I moved in with my mom, I reconnected with my ex-girlfriend, the one that I was with before I was with my wife. It started out as just kind of chit-chatting and hanging out here and there, and we ended up dating. And we were together for about a year during this whole process, and she had her ideas or her thoughts that I was drinking, but she didn't know for sure. I would always try to hide it from her. So it got to the point where, we're together, we're dating, and I was working at DHL. And it got to the point where I woke up the next day in bed with my supervisor. And this was on Easter Sunday. So I called and told my girlfriend and said, we need to talk. And so I kind of came over to her house and I told her everything. I just opened up. I said, I'm drinking, I'm, smoking cigarettes, I'm doing, smoking cigars, I'm sleeping around, I'm just not in a good place right now. And, it broke my heart to do that because I was so in love with her because she had done everything that she possibly could to help me out. She was there for me when I was low. She would help me out with, anything that I was going through, family stuff, divorce stuff, whatever. So it broke my heart to do that. And I just kind of looked at myself after that and said, I'm not the person I want to be. And I said, this is the father that I didn't want to be. I didn't want to be the alcoholic. I didn't want to be the one that was sleeping around. I didn't want to be the one that, could potentially let my daughter down. So from there, I basically just cold turkeyed, cut and dry, stopped drinking, stopped smoking cigarettes. And, to help me wean off the cigarettes, I switched to a vape, and I was, vaping for probably about a year, a little less than a year, but it was helping me get off the cigarettes. And that was in April of 2019. Yeah, April of 2019. And, I started seeing a therapist, and I started, really moving forward with my progress in fighting my depression, fighting my anxiety, opening up, admitting that I have these issues, not hiding things anymore. Not, I was honest with everybody. I was honest with my girlfriend. We broke up, I called it off with her and said, I can't keep doing this to you. I can't keep letting you down like this. I can't keep hurting you. And amazingly, she was still there for me. She still was, supportive. She still was, willing to help me out. And so we ended up back together again. And like I said, this whole time I was seeing a therapist, I decided to stop smoking. I decided to stop drinking. So as of now, fast forward to today, we are engaged to be married, getting married in September of 2021, and I can't wait. She's absolutely amazing. She would do anything for me, and I'd do anything for her. She has done anything for me. She's an amazing step parent to my daughter. My daughter loves her. She loves my daughter, and I can't ask for anything more. I am sober as of, April 2019, so about a year and a half, going on 2 years. And, I'm just loving where I'm at now. And that's kind of why I wanted to make this video, is because a lot of people don't know my story. A lot of people don't know my past. And, to some people, it probably seems like it's nothing, but everybody deals with shit differently. And, when it comes to how I was acting and, the decisions I made, I can't blame anybody. It was all me. I was doing those things. I was the one that was a bad husband. I was the one that was a bad boyfriend. I was the one that was, making myself think these things. A lot of the time it was, my anxiety was just constantly telling me negative thoughts in my head. And that would just make me more depressed. And it wasn't until I finally admitted it. It wasn't until I finally said to myself, like, this is a problem. This really is an issue. The near suicide attempt was a big eye opener. And it definitely made me think that made me realize that it was a real thing, that depression was a real thing. It just took me a little bit longer to fully learn how to cope with it. Like I said, I was an alcoholic. I consider myself a recovering alcoholic. I'm almost 2 years sober, and I'm thrilled about that. I'm so happy that I'm no longer drinking. I'm so happy that I'm no longer smoking. I feel healthier. I'm mentally healthier. Instead of drinking, there were days when I first started that I was like, fuck, I want to go to the bar. I want to do this. But instead of doing that, I started doing stuff with the moped at the time. I don't know if you guys have seen any pictures or followings on that build. But that was something that really helped me with that. It was something that helped me kind of get back to myself and kind of say, like, this thing started out as junk. My goal is to make this work. And in that process, I found out a lot about myself. I found out how to cope with things. I found out how to, teach myself new things. I found out how to push myself again. I found out, I want to set my goals. I want to become this better man. I want to come back to my old self. And that's kind of why I stuck with this motorcycle type of thing too, is, my fiance bought me the motorcycle. It's a piece of crap. And that was what I told her I wanted. I said, I want to take something that's broken and I want to fix it. Because that's what one of my best friend's dad did when he was growing up, or when I was growing up. He always was doing that in their garage. And I liked that. I was always intrigued by that. But it also helps me to say, okay, here's something I don't know anything about. Let me go learn about it. Let me teach myself about it. Here's a goal that I want to set. And so what I want to do is, I don't want to do this as I don't want to make $5,000 off of this. I don't want to do that. I don't want to make money off of this. What I want to do is, be the healthiest version of myself, physically and mentally, and this helps me do that. But what I also want to do is, make it aware, I want to always, help make it aware that mental health is a real thing. It's a real thing that people deal with. I still have days where I'm depressed. I have days where I, feel anxious. I'm on, I have FMLA at work so that if I do get flare-ups, I can take those personal days. I can do things that I need to. Even till this day, I still see a therapist. It's the same therapist from, when I first started going. I mean, she's great. She's helped me kind of recoup back to myself. And so I'm grateful for everything that I have around me. The support I have. My fiance is amazing. My family is amazing. And I'm just over the top with where I'm at. And the two biggest things that saved my life, and I've admitted this in the past, but the two things that have saved my life are my daughter and my support, my best friend that got me off the bridge that day, my now fiance that has done everything she can to help me get to where I'm at. She's been there financially for me. She's been there supportively, emotionally. My mom and my dad, who have gone above and beyond to make sure that I had a place to stay when I was in that time. They helped me get back up on my feet. My brothers, my sister, my cousins, everything. Those are the things that saved my life. And so what I want to do, and like I posted the other day, what I want to do is I want to build this bike because it's something that helps me. But I want to sell it or auction it, whichever we decide. And I'll take whatever money I have into it. Obviously, we'll kind of recoup that to put towards another project. But any profit that is made, every single dime of that is going to be put towards a mental health or suicide awareness organization. And that's what the purpose of this video is. It's so that you can understand my story, you can understand why I'm doing this, you can understand where I come from, and you can understand why I'm so passionate about this. I've told, a handful of people, I've posted, some stuff on Facebook about my story, but this is kind of me opening up to anybody that watches this. I know it's going on 38 minutes now, but this is something that I'm passionate about. I'm not going to apologize for it, but it's just who I am. It's what I love. It's what I'm passionate about. And any way that I can help make myself happy, but also make the world a better place or make the world more aware of this disease, I'm going to do it. So, with that, thank you to anybody who's watching this. Thank you to anybody who shares this or likes this or even just says, oh, he posted a video about himself. That's kind of cool. I thank you for that. But also, if you are somebody that's dealing with depression or anxiety or OCD or, schizophrenia or any mental health issue, don't let the stigma determine what you do. The stigma is, it's not that bad, or it's overlooked, or you're just overthinking it, or you're fine. Why would you worry about that? Why are you depressed about that? Like, why does that make you sad? Like, no, fuck that. Depression, anxiety, OCD, all that stuff is stuff that I deal with on a daily basis, and I know the struggles with it. So if you're struggling with it, tell somebody. Tell me. Tell your parents. Tell a best friend. Tell a therapist. Tell your doctor. Tell somebody. But don't let it eat you up. Because I let it eat me up, and it damn near took my life. And I know a lot of people who have either been through what I've been through, or I've seen people go through what I've seen through, or what I've seen. And I know a couple families who have lost the battle to depression, and it breaks my heart, to know that they were dealing with something that I was dealing with, and that I was fortunate enough to get the help and get the, get back to where I wanted to be. And it breaks my heart to know that some people don't. So thank you again for watching. Please share the hell out of this video. And follow this motorcycle build. It's not that much right now. I'm just kind of tearing some stuff down and figuring out everything that I need to do. But I'm hoping probably around springtime everything will be done. So I'll be posting updates with it. I'll be posting some videos, pictures, info about the organization that I'm going to work with, and kind of how I want to go about doing a sale or auction. So if you have any questions, if you have any concerns, or if you just want to talk, please reach out to me. You can always reach out to me. I don't care who you are. I'm here for you. So until then, thank you guys. Stay safe during this crazy time, and just be kind to one another. So love everybody. Peace.